In the emerald heart of Africa, surrounded by rolling hills and thick forests alive with birdsong and stories, there lay a small, humble village called Ajelele. Ajelele was a place of laughter and gossip, of palm wine and moonlight tales. Its people were farmers, drummers, hunters, and weavers, but above all they were watchers. Always watching, always talking. And when Akili and Mama Chiku, a poor but loving couple, gave birth to their first child under the full moon, the watching began. The moment the midwife cried out, "It's a girl," another gasp followed. Not one of joy, but of confusion. She has the neck of a giraffe," the midwife whispered. The baby's neck was long. Unnaturally long. It stretched upward like a stalk reaching for sunlight. Her skin glowed with a soft bronze sheen, her fingers curled like tiny leaves, and yet, all eyes were on that neck. "She's cursed," murmured one of the women. "Or blessed," said Mama Chiku, fiercely wrapping her child in a cloth. "She is our daughter. And her name shall be Nyira, the one who rises." From that moment on, Nyira's life was a path woven with both wonder and pain. As Nyira grew, so did her neck. By the time she was 5, it was longer than her entire torso. Children pointed. Some laughed. Others screamed. "She looks like a reed plant. She'll be eaten by the sky." Even some elders whispered that the gods had made a mistake, or that perhaps Mama Chiku had angered a spirit while pregnant. But Akili and Mama Chiku stood firm. They braided Nyira's hair with beads and cowries. They wrapped her neck in beautiful patterned cloths. They taught her to walk with pride, even when she wanted to bend low and hide. Every evening Akili would say, "The river does not ask the mountain why it is tall. And the sun does not beg the moon for light. You are Nyira. Be proud." But pride is not so easy when the world only sees what's different. At school, Nyira sat at the back so others could see the chalkboard. Teachers would pause mid-sentence, distracted by the way her neck curved gracefully like a dancer's arm. She learned to speak softly, to move carefully. She grew used to whispers and stares. Yet, deep within something flickered. A flame. A question. Why must I shrink for others to be comfortable? One day during a village festival, Nyira joined the other girls to dance before the chiefs. The drums beat. Feet stomped. Calabashes clattered. And as Nyira spun, her neck arched, swayed, and moved like a wave in the wind. The crowd gasped, not in disgust but in awe. "She dances like a flame. She's beautiful." That moment was small, but for Nyira, it was the first taste of something new, not just tolerance but acceptance. Still, the journey ahead would be long. And love. That seemed like a dream meant for other girls. Until he came. Years passed, and Nyira blossomed into a striking young woman. Her long neck, once a source of laughter and shame, had become something she embraced with quiet grace. She had learned to carry water jars on her head with perfect balance, her neck upright and elegant like the stem of a lotus flower. She walked softly but with presence, her scarves flowing behind her like royal banners. But even as she matured, the world around her stayed stubborn. People still whispered, though more quietly now. Some older women would tug their daughters away when Nyira passed by. "She'll bring spirits into your home," they muttered. "That neck is not natural." Nyira pretended not to hear, but deep inside, the loneliness was like a stone in her chest. She had never been courted, never received a gift from a boy, never danced with anyone beneath the moon. Girls her age were already getting married, weaving dreams of families and future homes. But Nyira? She only had her reflection in the river, and her mother's embrace. One dry season, as the village prepared for the festival of rain spirits, a young man came into Ajelele. He said his name was Kweku, and that he was a traveler from the western lands seeking work. He wore a simple brown tunic, carried a wooden flute, and offered to help with the yam harvest in exchange for shelter. He was handsome, with kind eyes and a soft, respectful voice. The elders allowed him to stay, and soon the villagers noticed how skilled he was, mending tools, planting without rest, and even charming goats that usually bit strangers. But what they didn't know was that Kweku was not just a traveler. He was Prince Kweku Ilisanmi, the second son of the great King Omateo of Agunike, a kingdom far beyond the mountains. His father had sent him into the countryside under disguise to learn humility and understand the people, before being crowned in the years ahead. Kweku had no intention of falling in love. Until he saw Nyira. He first noticed her at the river washing cassava roots. Her long neck, unwrapped for the water, caught the sunlight and shimmered like bronze silk. Birds fluttered above her head. Her laughter echoed like music. Kweku stopped. "Is she real?" he whispered to himself. But when he asked about her, the villagers only shook their heads. "Don't bother with her," a young man warned. "That neck will bring you nightmares. Her beauty is like the sun. Look too long and you'll go blind," an old woman muttered. Still Kweku watched from afar. He saw how she sang to children. How she fed the old man who begged near the palm grove. How she wiped her mother's tired face after a long day weaving mats. Her neck, he realized, was only the surface. Nyira's heart was where the true magic lay. One evening, as the village danced around the fire during the festival, Kweku found the courage to approach. "May I sit beside you?" he asked, his eyes gentle. Nyira blinked, stunned. No boy had ever spoken to her that way. She nodded shyly. They spoke for hours, about stars, dreams, rivers, and regrets. He never once mentioned her neck. Not with curiosity, not with mockery. And that night, for the first time, Nyira felt what it was like to be seen, not as strange but as beautiful. But in every tale, peace is never without trials. The chief's daughter, Amina, who had long admired Kweku without knowing his true identity, watched from the shadows. Jealousy burned like wildfire in her heart. "She thinks she can win a man with that cursed neck?" Amina sneered. "Let's see how long it lasts." And with that, a storm of envy began to stir, one that would test Nyira's strength and threaten the love that had just begun to bloom. The morning after the festival, the village awoke with warm laughter and the scent of roasted plantains still hanging in the air. The drummers had rested, the fire pits had died down, and the stars had gone to sleep. But Nyira's heart was very much awake. She couldn't stop thinking about Kweku. No one had ever looked at her that way, not with pity, not with confusion, but with wonder. She had replayed their conversation a dozen times before the rooster crowed. And yet, in the shadows, trouble was already unraveling. Amina, the chief's daughter, moved like a snake through the village, whispering seeds of malice into every ear that would listen. "Did you see her last night, sitting like she belonged beside him? That neck is unnatural, it lures good men like a spell. I heard she bathes with forest spirits, maybe that's where her powers come from." Her words slithered into hearts and twisted around tongues. By midday the rumors had bloomed like poison flowers. Old women clutched their necklaces when Nyira passed by. Children were told not to play near her compound. One boy even threw a mango at her and shouted, "Which neck?" Nyira said nothing. She only walked with her chin high, her scarf wrapped tight around her elongated neck, and her heart heavy with questions. Kweku too began to notice the cold air surrounding her. "I don't understand," he told one of the village boys. "What wrong has she done?" The boy shrugged. "None. But in this village, being different is a crime." That evening, Kweku found Nyira sitting at the riverbank, her feet in the water, staring at the reflection of her long neck dancing with the moonlight. "I'm sorry," he said gently, sitting beside her. "I think all of this is happening because of me." Nyira looked up, surprised. "No, it's not you. This world was not built for those who stretch above the crowd. It punishes those who rise." Kweku reached for her hand. "Then maybe we rise together?" A quiet smile bloomed on her face. And in that moment she almost believed they could. But Amina wasn't done. She followed Kweku one afternoon as he climbed the hill beyond the village to speak with a traveling merchant. What she overheard froze her blood. "Your Highness," the merchant whispered, bowing, "you must return to the palace before the moon turns full. Your father demands it." Amina's eyes widened. "Prince? So the humble stranger who captured Nyira's heart was royalty?" It wasn't just jealousy now, it was fury. That girl with the long neck was about to marry into a royal family? While the chief's own daughter, the daughter of Ajelele's highest bloodline, stood ignored. "Never," Amina hissed. "Over my dead body." That night, she made her way to the shrine of an old forest priestess, Mama Nyembo, a feared woman known to traffic in charms and curses. "I want you to stop her," Amina said, dropping cowries on the floor. Make her ugly. Make her voiceless. Make her disappear if you must. The old woman smiled, her teeth like broken shells. Then the story changes now. The moon waxed full over the village of Ajelele, and the air grew heavier, as if the land itself sensed that something unnatural had been set in motion. The morning after Amina's visit to the forest priestess, Nyira awoke feeling strange. She tried to greet her mother, but her voice came out dry, no words, only a breathless whisper. She drank water. She tried to sing a lullaby she had once sung to the neighbor's baby. Still nothing. Her voice was gone. Mama Chiku rushed her to the village healer, a gentle old man named Baba Anil, known for his knowledge of herbs and body signs. He examined Nyira and frowned deeply. "This is not illness. This is craft," he said grimly. A silence laid upon the tongue by unseen hands. Mama Chiku wailed, clutching her daughter tightly. Who would do this to her? But Nyira, though mute, already knew. She remembered the look in Amina's eyes. The bitterness. The fire. That day whispers flew through the village again. Now she cannot speak. Serves her right. Maybe she was a spirit after all. Spirits vanish at sunrise. What if the gods are finally correcting their mistake? Nyira wandered to the riverside, the place where she had always found peace. But even there the birds did not sing. The trees were still. Her heart ached with betrayal, not just from Amina, but from the people who had watched her grow and never truly seen her. Kweku arrived just before sunset. He had heard about her silence. He sat beside her without speaking, his heart breaking at the sight of her tear-streaked face. She tried to sign with her hands to explain what had happened, but he stopped her. "I know," he said. "I know it wasn't nature that took your voice. But I promise you, no matter what curse they place on you, I will find a way to lift it. You are not alone." Nyira smiled faintly, and for a moment even the river seemed to shimmer with hope. But the storm was not over. That evening, while the village gathered for a community feast, Chief Obo, Amina's father, announced that he had chosen a suitor for his daughter. Prince Kweku, the traveler who had stolen everyone's hearts. Gasps filled the air. Kweku froze. "I never agreed," he began. But Chief Obo raised a hand. "Amina is of royal lineage. And this man, as we now know, is not just any man but a prince. This is a union of honor." Amina stepped forward in a gown of silk, her smile triumphant. "Accept me," she said sweetly, "and I will restore peace to your stay in this land." Kweku looked into the crowd. Nyira stood far off, her eyes wide and full of pain. She tried to speak, nothing came. In that moment, Kweku did the unthinkable. He stepped away from Amina, walked across the gathering and knelt before Nyira. "I am Prince Kweku Ilasanmi," he declared loudly. "And I choose her." Gasps turned to murmurs. Shock rippled through the crowd like thunder. Chief Obo's face turned red with fury. "She's a cursed girl." But Kweku raised his head. "Then let me be cursed with her. For her silence speaks louder than your entire house." The villagers were stunned. No one had ever stood up for Nyira before, not like this. But while love had found its strength, the curse still remained. And now, the very safety of Nyira and Kweku's union was under threat, from tradition, from power, and from the dark forces still waiting in the woods. After Kweku's public declaration, the village of Ajelele split into silence and murmurs. Some people cheered quietly for Nyira's courage and the prince's choice. Others hissed curses beneath their breath. The chief and his daughter, Amina, stormed away that night, humiliated, but not defeated. The following morning, Kweku and Mama Chiku gathered a few belongings. They knew Nyira couldn't stay. Not with a curse that threatened her voice and now her life. Baba Anil, the old healer, summoned them to his hut at dawn. "I've seen this type of curse only once before," he said, his voice like dry leaves in wind. "Long ago, a girl with fire in her blood was silenced by a jealous queen. She journeyed to the Mountain of Whispers, where spirits gather and truth cannot hide. There, she begged for her voice and received a gift greater than speech." Kweku's eyes lit with hope. "Where is this mountain?" "Beyond the 7 rivers. Beyond the Valley of Bones. Past the forest of listening trees." Mama Chiku gasped. "That's days away on foot. No one travels there without a guide." "I'll go," Kweku said without hesitation. "Nyira and I will go together." So began a journey few in Ajelele would ever forget. Kweku and Nyira set off under the morning sun. She wore her longest scarf, woven by her mother the night before, embroidered with prayers. Kweku carried a satchel of food, charms, and a carved walking staff gifted by Baba Anil. They walked through thick forest paths, across bamboo bridges swaying above crocodile-filled rivers, and slept under trees where hyenas laughed in the dark. But never once did Nyira complain. Her silence, though painful, had become her power. Every night, she and Kweku sat by the fire and he would talk. He'd tell her stories of his childhood, of how he used to sneak out of the palace to watch commoners play, of how he longed to be seen not as a prince, but as a man. And she would smile or write simple messages on leaves with charred sticks, her eyes doing the talking. "I feel seen," she wrote one night, for the first time. And Kweku touched her cheek gently and whispered, "Then I have already won my kingdom." On the 5th night, they entered the forest of listening trees, where the wind echoed your thoughts back to you. Every time they moved, they heard whispers, fragments of memories, fears, and truths. "She's too different. That neck will curse us all. She's beautiful. I wish I had her courage." Nyira heard them all. The good, the cruel, the honest. But she walked through, head held high. Finally, after a week of travel, they reached the Mountain of Whispers. It was not what they expected. There were no glowing caves or thunderous gods, just a quiet mountain surrounded by mist, with stones shaped like open mouths and ears. It was said that only those who had suffered unjust silence could awaken the spirits here. At the base of the mountain, Kweku turned to her. "Are you ready?" Nyira nodded. She climbed alone. As she reached the summit, the mist thickened. Her breath grew heavy. She knelt before a stone shaped like a curled ear and placed her palm on it. And then from within the mountain came a voice, not her own but one old, deep, and full of sorrow. "You who have carried silence like a wound, what do you seek?" Nyira could not answer with words. So she removed her scarf, exposed her long neck to the wind, and let her tears fall. The wind stirred. "You have been mocked for your difference, punished for your beauty, cursed for your light," the voice said. "But your voice was never taken. It was hidden in your spirit, waiting for you to believe in your worth. And then, sing." For the first time in weeks, Nyira opened her mouth. And her voice came out, not broken, not soft, but clear and strong, like the call of an eagle over a mountain peak. She sang. She cried. She laughed. The winds howled in joy. And far below, Kweku heard her voice echo through the valley and smiled, tears in his own eyes. When Nyira descended the Mountain of Whispers, the earth felt different beneath her feet. The wind no longer howled in sorrow, it hummed with her melody. The trees bowed gently as she passed. The mist, once cold, now parted like a curtain welcoming a queen. Kweku stood at the base, his breath caught in his chest. Then he heard it, a voice as smooth as river stones, rich and vibrant. "Kweku," she said, smiling. His name on her lips was more precious than gold. He rushed to her, lifted her into his arms, and spun her like the wind dances leaves. "You spoke. I heard you." "I sang," she whispered. "The mountain gave me back more than just my voice. It gave me clarity." They journeyed back to Ajelele together, moving with purpose. Nyira no longer hid her neck beneath scarves. She let it shine, long and elegant, kissed by sun and rain. Villagers they passed along the way stared, but no longer with mockery. Her silence had been their excuse to forget her spirit. But now, with her voice restored, she was unforgettable. When they reached Ajelele, word had already spread. The cursed girl had found her voice. The village gathered at the central square as the couple walked in, hand in hand. Amina and her father, Chief Obo, stood stiffly among them, their pride still wounded. Mama Chiku ran to embrace her daughter, crying into her shoulder. My child. My child." Nyira held her mother and then stepped forward. She faced the people who had once turned their backs, her voice calm but powerful. "You called me cursed, but it was your hearts that carried fear. You mocked my neck, but failed to see how strong it had to be, to hold my head high through your shame." Silence swept through the crowd. "I do not return for your pity. I do not need your praise. I return to say this, I am not small so you can feel big. I am not silent so you can speak louder. I am Nyira, and I rise because I was born to." It was then that a strange thing happened. An old woman in the crowd began to clap. Then another. And another. Soon the entire square erupted into applause. Even some who had mocked her now cried openly. But not everyone was happy. Chief Obio growled, "This is foolishness. We cannot allow a girl with spirit magic and royal blood to shame my house." Prince Kweku stepped forward. "Then it's time the throne knows the truth. Let the world hear that Ajelele shunned a queen before she wore her crown." The chief staggered back. He knew the truth was out, and so was his influence. Later that evening, Kweku and Nyira sat beside the river under moonlight, just as they had once before. But now her voice hummed soft songs as fireflies danced nearby. "I loved you before you spoke," Kweku said. "But now I hear your heart." Nyira smiled. "And I will sing it to you forever." He reached into his tunic and pulled out a carved ring, made from the wood of the Mountain of Whispers. "Will you be my queen?" he asked. Nyira nodded. "Yes. But only if I can be queen with a long neck, a loud voice, and a past I won't erase." He laughed. "That's the only queen I want." The great baobab tree of Ajelele had stood for hundreds of years, its thick trunk wider than 5 men's arms could circle, its branches spreading like a grandmother's embrace. Beneath it, many things had happened: births, blessings, banishments. But never before had it witnessed a wedding like this. The entire village gathered in awe. Colorful fabrics fluttered in the wind, drums thumped like heartbeats, and flowers woven into garlands dangled from the branches of the baobab like blessings from the ancestors. In the center stood Nyira, tall and radiant. She wore a gown dyed with sunset colors, orange, gold, and deep earth red. Her long neck, uncovered, was decorated not with heavy ornaments, but with a single string of river pearls from the place she had always found peace. Her hair was braided with cowries and feathers. Her eyes sparkled not just with beauty, but with wisdom born of sorrow, survival, and triumph. Beside her stood Prince Kweku, no longer in disguise. He wore his royal regalia, deep indigo robes, a golden sash, and a crown carved with the symbols of truth and light. But his smile, humble and warm, still belonged to the man who once sat with her by the riverbank, simply asking to be seen. Mama Chiku cried tears of joy, standing beside the elders who once doubted her daughter's worth. Even Baba Anil, the old healer, danced for the first time in years, clapping his hands and shouting praises. And when the drums paused, the village grew quiet. Nyira stepped forward and spoke, not as a girl with a strange neck, not as a cursed child, but as a queen. "I was mocked for the way I was born. But I was also loved. I was feared for standing tall. But today I rise not alone but with you all. Let every child who is different know, you are not wrong. The world may take time to understand you, but never let it make you small." A roar of cheers shook the trees. Even Amina, standing far off, felt something stir in her chest. Envy still lingered, but it softened into reflection. She would never forget how Nyira, once shunned and silenced, had turned pain into power and stood taller than anyone ever had, both in body and in spirit. As the ceremony ended, Nyira and Kweku danced beneath the baobab. The villagers joined in, young, old, rich, poor. No one whispered that night. They only sang. The sky turned pink, then purple, then deep blue. The stars arrived as honored guests. And as the new queen of Ajelele twirled with her prince, her long neck gleaming under moonlight, she knew. She had not just found love. She had found home.